Bleach. I started watching this anime around 6 months ago now, despite having watched anime religiously for 5.5 years. I haven't really watched any of the big three, so this is my first time experiencing watching one of them all the way through. I have started watching One Piece, and that is on the Mito Mito no podcast on Junior the Lecture's channel, link will be in the description. This show, I'd say, is definitely worthy of being called one of the big three. There will be spoilers for Bleach in this video all the way through to 1000 Year Blood War: The Separation, but I won't delve too much into detail, otherwise the video will be literally hours long. I'll just go for the parts that I like and remember. I won't really be covering the movies in detail, so I'll just say I like them all: Memories of Nobody, Diamond Dust Rebellion, Fade to Black and Hellverse, and Fade to Black and Hellverse were my favourites of the 4 movies. In this video I'll give my thoughts on each arc, and say whether I enjoyed them much or not. Now without further delay, let's talk about Bleach. The first arc of Bleach, the Agent of the Shinigami. It was okay. It was a bit slow, but it did set up for things to pick up. Ichigo got his powers from Rukia and defeated some Hollows. We met with Ishida the last Quincy, my favourite of Ichigo's squad. And Inoue and Chad get their powers as well. Rukia wasn't supposed to give Ichigo her power, however, so Renji and Byakuya show up to take her away to the Soul Society, and Ichigo prepares with Urahara and Yoruichi to go to the Soul Society to rescue her. Nice setup, but it is a little slow to get moving. The first half of the Soul Society arc, a big step up from the previous arc. Ichigo and gang meet with Kukaku and Ganju Shiba, who blast them off to Soul Society through a cannon, and Ichigo fights Zaraki, which is the captain of Squad 11, with his sword named Zangetsu. And the fight was nothing short of epic. And also, Zaraki's voice is pretty cool. An added note, during this arc he actually hated Ichimaru Gin's gut, because he killed Aizen, who I grew really attached to. So how could I not hate him? Ichigo did attempt to save Rukia this arc, but Yoruichi stopped him because he wasn't strong enough, and she goes to start training him up so he can save Rukia. Overall, it's a good arc with some good fights, the standout being Zaraki versus Ichigo. Also, I remember this one big guy said he was super strong, and he then got destroyed, which was funny. During the Soul Society arc as a whole, it really makes you think that the Soul Reapers are the bad guys in this story. But anyway, continuing on from the sneak entry arc is the second half of the Soul Society arc, the rescue arc, where we see our first instance of Bankai. Bankai? Rukia is going to be executed and the day keeps moving. The Ichigo is running out of time. Ishida and Inoue's fight against Kurotsuchi. Oh my god, Ishida blew a hole in Kurotsuchi, sacrificing his powers. Again during this arc, I was really disgusted by Kurotsuchi, so I wanted him to die by that shot, which unfortunately he didn't. Hitsugaya vs Ichimaru. Oh my god, not only seeing Hitsugaya as Hiyori and Maru, but also Aizen getting Hinamori to find Hitsugaya through deception, just oh my lord. Then when you discover Aizen isn't dead, suddenly I don't hate Ichimaru anymore. Not to mention, he tricked Hinamori and stabbed her. This girl cannot catch a break. Saruki vs Komamoto and Torsen was cool. And Ichigo saves Rukia from execution, but not without an epic fight against Byakuya and his Senbon Zakura Kageyoshi. Ichigo awakened to his hollow powers and wins, and Aizen, Ichimaru, and Torsen lead to Hueco Good arc. I think I preferred this one to the sneak entry one. After this arc, I didn't hate Kurochi as much either. The most boring arc in Bleach. I had thoughts of quitting Bleach while watching this arc. It was so much of a snooze fest. Jinkaryo was probably the only interesting bout in this entire arc. The only parts of this arc got interesting for me was actually in the next arc. But there was this one part with the shadow fight at the base which was kinda cool. The bout attacking the Soul Society arc. While the previous part of the bout arc was boring, this part I actually enjoyed. A little bit. It had some good fights and the final fight with Ichigo and Karyo was really entertaining. This arc goes deeper into Ichigo's hollow powers a bit. And once Ulquiorra and Yami come to Karakura Town, Ichigo gets slapped about and bodied by them, like completely destroyed with no chance of fighting back. So he goes to a cool place with Shinji, which is a new classmate of his, and he meets the Vizards to train him to use his inner hollow powers properly. Ishida also regained his Quincy powers from learning a way to restore them with his dad. Grimmjow, my favorite Arrancar. He takes the squad and attacks Karakura Town as well. I thought Edrad would be a little more important in this story, considering what I'd seen of him, but I guess not, considering Ikaku did his Bankai. And you go bye-bye. Grimmjow barely gets fended off, and since he decided to attack on his own without permission, his arm gets cut off. And his number 6 of the rank of the Espada gets his replacement is Lupi for Espada number 6. Good introductions to some of the coolest characters in Bleach. Really good arc. I can't quite remember when Wonder Ice was created, but Aizen had created Wonder Ice from the Hogyoku. And then, in Karakura Town, Lupi, Yami, and Grimmjow are holding off the Soul Reapers and distracting them. Ulquiorra goes to steal Inoue, and Ichigo and company go to Hueco through the help of Urahara to save her, despite being warned not to by Yamamoto Gen Ryusai. They make some friends in Hueco, which are Nell, Tessia, Dondochaka, and Bawa Bawa. Bawa Bawa being their pet snake worm thing. And after the team fights a Sand Guardian, whose name I cannot pronounce for the life of me because it's difficult, Ryuki and Randy join them to save Inoue, and then they all sneak into Las Noches to Palace of Hueco. Well, I wouldn't say snuck in would be the right term for it. It was a good arc, but in the Arrancar arcs, it was definitely one of the slightly weaker ones. Somewhere in the arc, I can't quite remember where, one of the coolest Grimmjow moments happens, where he kills Lupi and takes back his rank of Espada number 6.
Oi, onna. もう一箇所直せ。何のつもりだよ、クリム嬢。ああ。クリム嬢。てめえ。そういうことだ。じゃあな、元6番。
I like this arc. You had the introduction of the Exo-Spada, the Pre-Verona-Spada. Dordoni Funny Dance Man, Suruchi Sandavici, Sandwich Yo-Yo Girl who's playing Slip and Slide, and Gunten Bain Mosqueda, who is the biggest afro you've ever seen and likes fist fights. Which Chad fighting him unlocked his new ability, which is Big Shield, and his Diablo Arm. On a more serious note though, his Diablo Arm is one of the coolest moves I've ever seen in Bleach. La Muerte.
La Muerte.
There was also the introduction of Adoniero Arurueri, which is a funny name to say, who consumed a lot of hollows, somewhere in the thousands, like 30,000 or something, I can't remember. And he took the face of Kai and Shiba, who was Ryukia's squad mate and the former lieutenant of Squad 13. We had another introduction to one of my favorite Rancars in this arc, the Espada. Espada number 8, Daira Poro Guranth. Also the scientist Rancor, and he can heal by eating his fasciones, which are kind of like how the Soul Reapers have captains. The fasciones are kind of like the Espada's version of lieutenants. Grimmjow in this arc on a one-on-one fight, but Ichigo is currently dealing with Ulquiorra. So Grimmjow decides to seal Ulquiorra away and goes to fight Ichigo and make sure he's healed, and they're both in fighting strengths because he wants to have a fair one-on-one fight. Like, this is rival versus rival. He wants to make this fair. But yeah, it was probably one of the coolest. It was probably the coolest fight in the anime so far. Like the ultimate fight, Grimmjow versus Ichigo. The two rivals finally going to toe-to-toe, evenly matched. Grimmjow as well with his grind Pantera. I was getting goosebumps. It was a banger arc and really good, really great. Really good arc. Grimmjow vs Ichigo stole the show and was perfect to end the arc on before the filler. Shusuke Amagai arc. One of the best filler arcs. I like the whole struggle for power between the Kasumiyoji family and Kenryu and Enryu, but the Amagai Shusuke stuff stole the cake. Being the new captain of Squad 3 after Ichimaru had left them, there was a whole thing he was interested with, which was the Bakoto, and that was an interesting concept. Using the blade, but the blade, if you use too much of its power, would consume you alive. But I can't forget about the monkey face that is Kumoi. I swear they gave him that jawline on purpose. But Amagai Shusuke as a character, he went from a kind, caring guy and then delved into madness for his revenge that he thought Genryusa Yamamoto had killed his father. But it was the Bakoto. And there was also his subordinate Kibune. Great for a filler arc, and it really makes up with the snooze fest that was the majority of the bounce arc.
Laika.
Another one of my favourite arcs, where it trade fights between Noitora and Zaraki, while Tesla gets absolutely obliterated. We also get to see Nell transform into Big Nell, and she loves Ichigo. Got some nice backstory between Noitora and Nell, and we discover Noitora is actually sexist towards women. Also, I love Noitora's voice, it's so good, and I got one of my favorite scenes in Bleach. Probably is my favorite scene in the whole of Bleach. But yeah, he is obsessed with becoming the strongest. His resurrection is cool too. Another Aranka I like a lot, Zairoporo versus Kurotsuchi. Zairoporo's resurrection is cool. It's like he's playing with puppet toys and sitting back having fun crushing each of their organs, one by one. Kurotsuchi destroys him through using his drugs, obviously Nemu being the test subject. And poor Zairoporo is just waiting to die, since the drug that was used on him raises his senses to superhuman levels. He's just waiting, and waiting for the blade to pierce his heart so he could die. It's so sad. The Somali was just there. I mean, he took over after Uruki and Aroniero's fight when they defeated each other. And tried to use Uruki as a puppet against Byakuya, but Byakuya sent one Sakura just destroys him. And when he was gonna die, he kept yelling Banzai. Banzai! 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 Aizen-sama! Aizen-sama! Banzai! And it was kind of funny. Ulquiorra. As you know, way back and the arc pretty much wraps up. And Aizen is invading Karakura town. Fights in this arc were really good, and I heavily enjoyed this arc. This delves into the past of the Vizards and past Soul Society. And it shows Aizen was betraying everyone with his Kyoka Suigetsu from the beginning. And that the Vizards were originally all Soul Reapers, but because of Aizen they got turned into Hollows. So they were sentenced to death. But Urahara protected them and was banished from Soul Society because of it. I really did like the past arc, showing off Shinji and the other Vizards during their time in the Soul Society, and when Urahara was part of the Soul Society as well. It's crazy that Kurotsuchi was actually locked in the nest of maggots and was a prisoner, before becoming captain of Squad 12. This was another of my favourite arcs. A good arc saw some fights between Lord Baragon's Fracciones and Tia Haribel's Fracciones as well. Charlotte Kuhlhorn versus Yumichiko was funny, just insulting each other. Gyo vs Almeida and Soifon was another notable fight, and the whole tiger look he had going was cool. Findor vs Hisagi was pretty cool too. I liked the parts where he could break off more of his mask, and his power would change along with it, depending on how much of his mask he broke off. Abirama Reda vs Izuru was cool as well. The big red bird fights Gloomy Lieutenant. I loved how cool it looked when Izuru cut off his head after Abirama commented on how strange his sword looked. All I remember about Padu's fight was he was chasing Almeida. That's literally it. And Power was just big and got wrecked by Komamoto's Bankai. My favourite fight of this arc though was the Lieutenants versus Sunsun, Mirorose and Apache. Sunsun was my favourite. This fight was all sorts of amazing. They wiped out several lieutenants, and if that wasn't enough, they sacrificed their left arms to summon Ion, which is a massive beast, and it was only stopped because of Yamamoto Gen Ryusai. Great arc with some awesome fights. The third of the Bleach filler arcs, the Zanpakuto filler arc. Well, the Zanpakuto rebel against their masters because of Muramasa, who was trying to revive his master, Koga. But Koga is a piece of crap who treats his Zanpakuto like a tool, and he kills Muramasa, saying he doesn't need him, and he's stronger. So sad for Muramasa, rest in pepperonis. You got betrayed by your own master. Nice arc with good fights though. This arc was literally just some more time being spent with the Zanpakutos and getting to see some of their personalities. I liked Sabimaru the most. Nice and wholesome for Bleach and more slice of life-like, compared to the action-packed stuff we have usually. It was a very nice change of pace. Another one of my favourite arcs. A fight with Ichigo versus Ulquiorra, and that was awesome. Although even after some information received later on in Bleach and Thousand Year Blood War about Ichigo, I still think that it was a bit bullcrap how Ichigo kinda just didn't die, and he turned into his Vastalorde form during this fight. It was a really cool fight though. Ryuki and Renji are fighting the Exekias and its leader, which can make endless servants and endless soldiers from its branches. So that was alright, it was kinda cool-ish. Moving on to the fights between the final three of Sparta. Tia vs Hitsugaya was cool. The whole thing about Tia being a shark and using the power of water was really cool. Flooding. Not to mention the reveal that she was a Sparta number 3 and she had it imprinted on her booba. The fight between Skeleton Man Lord Baragon, who was the ruler of Hueco before Aizen took it over, and Soifon and Omaida was scary. Their aging power was terrifying, like, your skin gone from your bones. It was disintegrating everything.
Kuchiro. Arrogante.
The fighters had come to help during these fights, and Hachi had to seal Baragon in a barrier, while Soifon blasted a Bankai missile through the hole. What really killed Lord Baragon, though, was his own power, because Hachi had given it to him through his right arm, and then he died from his own aging power. Coyote Stark and Lilynet versus Ukitake and Kyoraku. Lilynet and Ukitake was just funny, but being treated like a kid before eventually returning to Stark's guns. Stark versus Kyoraku. It was a sad fight. Stark was shooting Seto blasts from his guns and splitting parts of his soul into wolves to try and counter Kyoraku's shadow attacks. The Takeoni. His backstory was he was a loner and all his friends were dying because he was too strong, so he had to make his only friends through splitting part of his soul. It was actually really sad when he perished. Aizen had killed or thought to have killed Tia, because if numbers 1 and 2 died, what chance did she have, right? Yami also gets killed between a fight from Byakuya and Zaruki, which was funny as he was revealed to be a Sparta number 0. Torsen turns into a bug fly and can see. And isn't quote-unquote blind, but he is blind because he's blinded by revenge and loses to Komamura, and then Aizen kills him. Wonder Ice also joins in the fun and fights Yamamoto again Ryusai and gets absolutely bodied, but not before blowing up to damage Old Man Yama. Ichigo had appeared back from Puerto Mundo at this point, and did fight Ichimaru and his long blade, while Aizen is transforming with the help of the Hogyoku. Aizen, knowing that this isn't a real Karakura town, goes to the Soul Societies where the real one is, and on his way there, he destroys the Clean and the Precipice world and everyone's scared of him when he arrives. Ichimaru even betrays Aizen and Aizen kills him. I never thought I would cry when Ichimaru died, but there I was, crying. Ichigo did some training to obtain the final Getsuga, which was transforming into Getsuga himself. But he loses his Soul Reaper powers in the process, so he does become Getsuga, and Aizen keeps transforming, eventually into some weird Arankar-like black mask-looking being, which at this point, I wasn't as entranced by Aizen as earlier as I was in the beginning of the story, but at this point I was just like, I'm sorry, you're not pretty enough anymore. And Ichigo destroys Aizen, and Aizen gets sealed with the help of Urahara, Yoruichi and Isshin, and then Aizen goes to prison for like 20,000 years. A really crazy arc, and I wrote way more about it than I thought I would. Also, Don Kanonji exists, forgot to mention him earlier. My other favourite filler arc. I liked it when the members of the Soul Society were fighting copies of themselves, and Omidus was funny because he looked muscly, and he refused to look like the actual Omidus because he thought he was ugly. Like damn, way to roast him to hell and back. Think about Omidus' feelings. Kagedoza was actually an interesting villain for me. Don't know how he wasn't discovered earlier in Squad 12 though. Kurotsuchi was slacking. Anyway, he fused with Nozomi, some random girl who fell from the sky, who was half of Yushima, and Kagedoza was the other half. Yushima was an ex-member of Squad 12. Ichigo temporarily got his Soul Reaper powers back, and managed to slash and win against Yushima, and it ended up splitting Nozomi and Kagedoza back up into two separate halves. The copies of the Gote 13, the Uregai, had went to stop Yushima's plan because it is their duty to stop him since he's gone crazy, and they stopped the Soul Society from being destroyed. I retold the event slightly out of order, but it was overall probably my favourite filler arc of all of them. It had good fights, it had a good plot, and I really quite enjoyed this one. The arc with the Fullbringers. Apart from the Arankar saga as a whole, this was my favourite arc outside of that. It was so good. One thing I noticed while recording this video is that the opening theme's tune changes depending on how complete Ichigo's Fullbring ability is, which is actually really cool. Although I won't play it for copyright reasons. Ichigo lost his powers and is starting to panic, because he cannot save his friends and family. Meanwhile, Ishida gets cut down by an unknown figure, and Ginjo helps Ichigo by inviting him to join Execution. Oh yeah, everyone aged by a year and a half, and Ichigo has a job now too. Execution is a group of people with the Fullbring ability. And oh look, Chad is here too. Chad's power, his arms, are a Fullbring ability that he has. The person that was targeting all of Ichigo's friends was Tsukishima, another Fullbring user. Ginjo starts Ichigo on training with Uriruka. She is a tsundere for Ichigo, but she is also the best Bleach waifu. Uriruka is great and Uriruka is my beloved. To use his Fullbring abilities, he can defeat Tsukishima and also relieve the Fullbring users of their Fullbring powers. Uriruka's power is Dollhouse, which anything she finds cute she can freely move in and out of objects, whether that's people or objects themselves. Which is the reason why Ichigo was fighting a stuffed pig named Mr. Pork. There's also Jackie, who has the ability Dirty Boots, which the dirtier she gets, she can attack harder. Ginjo has a sword. Giriko, who has the power to control time using a timer. And also Yukio, who has the power of gaming with his ability called Invaders Must Die. Once Ichigo is ready, Tsukishima busts in the Execution hideout and cuts several Execution members. By this point, a lot of people have been cut by Tsukishima, and his ability is called Book of the End, which means he can insert himself into any person's memories which are cut, and they act like he was the most important figure in their lives and he was always there for them. When Ichigo went crazy from seeing everyone he knew except Tsukishima and he beat the crap out of him in front of his friends, I was surprised. I was like, oh my god, he has complete control. He slashed everybody. Even Inoue and Chad fight Ichigo. Luckily, Ginjo manages to snap Ichigo out of it. When Ichigo is feeling the most despair, the Soul Reapers come to help. And I liked watching Stuffed Animal Bunny Rukia versus Ureruka. After Ichigo decides to face Tsukishima, Tsukishima had cut Ginjo, but Ginjo starts laughing like a madman because his plan was to make him seem friendly. But he got Tsukishima to slash him and all of the other Execution members to make them act that way. And Ginjo gave him instructions to make up a story and that they all hated Tsukishima. But his real goal was to develop Ichigo's Fullbring ability and then steal it. And it's also revealed, at this point, that it wasn't Tsukishima that slashed Ishida, but it was Ginjo. This is what made Ichigo break down and cry. He thought he had lost absolutely everything near and dear to him, even his own powers. After the Soul Reapers arrived and helped, Ginjo steals Ichigo's Fullbring, and they then have an epic fight. Because Ginjo was the first substitute Soul Reaper before Ichigo, and it feels like the final fight. The final fight of Bleach. Substitute Soul Reaper versus Substitute Soul Reaper, the epic conclusion. The level of hype for this fight was insane. And also Byakuya was fighting Tsukishima in the background. After Ginjo and the other Execution members are defeated, Ureruka, Jackie, and Yukio leave Shishigawara Fullbring with the ability of using lucky punches, leaves with Tsukishima on his back, and Ureruka is also healing up in the Soul Society because she's injured from Tsukishima while she was trying to protect Ichigo. And we're left thinking that Giriko, who was cut down by Zaraki within 5 seconds, Tsukishima and Ginjo are dead. Now that main Bleach is done, let's get into the 1,000-Year Blood War. Now onto the 1,000-Year Blood War. Some parts really do mix up, because I might get the two parts mixed up because I watch them really close together, so it might not be entirely correct between the two parts, but it's what I thought of it as a whole, I suppose. First off, let me just say, oh my god, they really upped the animation after a decade. I mean, look at this Ichigo reveal with the #1 theme. Got me really hype as hell. But we see that there is another issue arising after the Fullbringers, and that is a Quincy mixed with an Arankar named Eban. And it turns out he was sent by the Quincy King, who had been awakened. I like the whole German naming convention that the Quincy's have. I like it more than the Spanish they had going for the Arankars. In the first episode, Sasakiba is impaled and dies, Like, what the heck? Even during Aizen's attack, only people got seriously injured. But here, straight up first episode, the lieutenant of Squad 1 is dead. That sets the tone of this new arc now, doesn't it? We also learn that this group is called the Vandenreich, and they want to destroy the Soul Society. This Quincy King, who we find out has the name Yuhavaha, which was a really difficult name to try to pronounce till I heard it a few times. I was like, what is his name? Yuwak? Yuwok? There? I had no clue until I heard them say it. He's taken Tia Haribel hostage, and Nell had asked Ichigo for help. Well, I guess Aizen didn't kill Tia after all. Yuhavaha is much more ruthless than anyone we've seen in Bleach so far, as shown in episode 1. By the way, Tia actually took over after Lord Baragon as the ruler of Hueco Mundo. We are also introduced to a Quincy who is a rank of Stone Ritter named Kilga, who has a personality.
Hi, hi! 正式にこれより生きるか死ぬか炎アランカル混合大選抜大会を開催いたします。私が右端から順番に突き殺していくので、こんな風に。
And Ichigo and Co travel to Hueco Mundo to take the Quincy's on after the attack, minus Ishida. And they team up with the Arancars, Tia's Fracciones, who apparently aren't dead either, and together they cannot take him out. He actually gets killed by my boy Grimjow, yeah, F him up and destroy him, yeah. But the situation is that serious, you have Hollows and Soul Reapers and everybody literally teaming up against the Quincy's. Aizen is in prison, and Yuhavaha is visiting him sometimes, by the way. The Quincy's invade Soul Society and take some lives before leaving before the real invasion begins. We get introduced to some more Quincy's, my personal favorites being Baz B. He has a fight against Hitsugaya and Rangiku in part 2. I know I talked about it a bit early though. I like his burner finger.
Burner finger!
I also like Bambietta and Asnot so far, and I also liked Hashvalto. Also, Kangdu vs Hitsugaya, who actually remembers this guy, because I sure as hell don't. Oh yeah, there was also Keyboard Face. Ichigo did have a cage around him made by Kilga, but he did manage to break out as he does. Then he went to train with a new squad named Squad Zero, who are basically the Soul King's guardians. And he went to go train with them after the first Quincy invasion finished and some captains had got their Bankai stolen. Also yay, Kiriko, Ginjo and Tsukishima are all alive and helping Kakakushiba. To do a bit of backtrack, sometime in episode 3, in the arc, Ishida looks through his dad, which is Ryuken's study, and he finds out the truth behind the Quincy's, and later on ends up teaming with Yuhavaha. Also, Yamamoto dies. Like, what the hell? Because he failed to finish off Yuhavaha 1000 years ago. Did get to see his epic Bankai though.
Zanka no Tachi, Minami. Kaka 10万億死大掃除。なんだ。ザイドリッツ。アルグラ、ヒューベルト。無慈悲に殺した部下でも見えておるのか。山本茂国、貴様。
Ichigo fights Yuhavaha before training with Squad Zero, except Yuhavaha beats him very badly. And when he tries to lunge to stop him from leaving, Ashvalt cuts his sword. Kyoraku loses an eye to Quincy gun, and also takes over as head captain for the Gotei 13 after Old Man Yama died. Kyoraku's first action as head captain was he wanted to teach Zaraki some new moves, so Zaraki went to go fight Unohana, which her real name is actually Yachiru Kenpachi. And she was the original first Kenpachi, and Zaraki's second name is also Kenpachi. So to truly So to truly succeed her as the next Kenpachi, Zaraki had to kill Yachiru. Ichigo gets some new blades, and Ryukyo, Renji, and Byakuya all awaken to their new true Zanpakuto powers. Also, Ichigo's sword is apparently not Zangetsu but Yuhavaha, and Ichigo also has Quincy powers now, because Ichigo's mum is a Quincy, and Ichigo's dad, Ishin, is a Soul Reaper. And one last thing, which we now learn in Ichigo's past, is that Aizen was casually planning everything around Ichigo's life even before Sensei was born the entire time. My favourite of the Bleach arcs for 1000 Year Blood War. The opening is great and I really like the slice of life aspect that it has going for it. Ishida joins up with Yuhavaha and Hashvalt on the Quincy side in this arc. When Bambietta learns that Ishida is Yuhavaha's successor suddenly, she gets mad and then kills a hot guy in her bedroom, I guess. And also the Quincy King song had more to it, as it prepared for the actual invasion of the Soul Society. It's kind of a little song to go with the Quincy King. The song goes, the confined Quincy King regains his pulse after 900 years, his mind after 90 years, and his power after 9 years, and the world in 9 days. There's some more interesting things in this arc, like more into Kumamoto's backstory, and then he could take a more humanoid form to gain more power, but at the cost of forever being a wolf at the end, unable to be human or human-like again. Some cool fights in this arc. Bambietta vs Shinji. Shinji showed Bambietta his Bankai and just made her senses go funny. And that's a good fight in this arc. Bambietta vs Kumamoto. Kumamoto gets a Bankai evolution with his, superpowered, more human-like form. And, it's very powerful.
挽回北上天元妙断崖城へ
Toyphone vs BG9. Rest in peace, Helmet Man. Got destroyed by the holified Bankai missile, which was used because regular Bankai could be stolen from the Quincy's. James and the muscle guy masked masculine enrages at ringside. Jesus, that muscle guy just bang, boom, bonk. Absolutely everyone was getting bodied. And to top it off, he even survived Kensei's Bankai punches and Rose's Bankai too.
挽回
He wasn't stopped until Renji got back from training with Squad Zero and destroyed Master Masculine as well with Bankai So Zabimaru.
So Zabimaru Sagate Ko!
Which is a line I've been waiting to hear from Renji since I started watching Bleach. Renji covered up his bad hairline with a headband now, by the way. Also, Nanao, which is Kyoraku's lieutenant, traps Hashvalto in a barrier. The White Haze episode. Rukia vs As Not. As Not having the power to control fear was spooky, but kinda cool in a way. But it really gave me the chills. Rukia's Bankai was ice cold, literally. But Endroll playing in the background as the fight between Rukia and As Not was finishing up, it was just a perfect placement for the ending theme, and it was a great end to the episode. The fight against Grammy was crazy. First off, he created some old man to fight Yachiru, and then Gremmy had the power to basically will anything in existence by pure imagination. He literally summoned machine guns and meteors. And while he had meteors, he copied himself too. He literally had the power to do anything. But it's a real shame, because he imagined Zaruki as a monster he couldn't defeat, and then he ended up dying and losing because of it. My next favourite fight, and probably my favourite fight in the whole of 1000 Year Blood War, is Kurotsuchi vs Gazelle in Marching Out the Zombies. Gazelle, being the best femboy, has the power to turn people into his zombies just by splashing his blood on them. And he had an army of Soul Reapers. And Kurotsuchi had stitched up zombies of his own, which were two of the pre-Ron Espada, being Dordoni and Tsuruchi, and then Lupi and Charlotte also came back as well. Oh yeah, there was also the infamous demon scene. I can't forget that one.
丸腰の女の子がどうのって言ってたけど、君、男だろ？
は？
隠してるつもりだろうけど、正規臭いよ君。
Gazelle is probably my favorite Quincy from the Sternritters. He even had created a zombified version of Hitsugaya. He even zombified Kensei, Rose, and Rangiku as well. Yeah, safe to say Kurotsuchi won that one quite easily by turning Gazelle's own zombies against him. Moving on to the next part, there was this man in a nappy and he had gross looking love hearts. You know what? Yeah, never mind. Let's not talk about that. Gazelle was part of a squad of girls, by the way, called the Bambies, which was led by Bambietta. There were other people there. There was Lil Toto, Candice Catnip, and Meninas. You can tell how much I liked Bambietta with how much of her appears in this video. Anyway, Yuhavaha absorbed his fellow Quincy's powers and used 4 of the Sternritters, 4 of the most powerful ones, to fight Squad Zero so he could defeat the Soul King. I remember Lil Toto and Gazelle hiding together during this point. I'd say my favourite of Squad Zero is Senjumaru Shutada, the arms lady. But Nemaya was pretty funny. You know, the guy that created the Zanpakuto. Ichibei is just plain scary. I don't want to mess with him. But I don't have much to say about the other two though. Part 2 ends with Shutada trapping Ishida and the other 4 high-ranking Quincy's, which are Asken Nak Levar, he's slightly interesting. There was also Sniper Man and Valkyrie. Hush Velta was there too, of course. Anyway, all 4 were in her Bankai, which was left on a cliffhanger, and Hashvalto. So was Ishida, and Yuhavaha is fighting Ichibei. That's kinda where we caught up to. This turned more into a recap than I thought it would. But I liked my time with Bleach, and overall I would recommend it. Just maybe not the Bound arc. This video is only covering parts I remembered, or parts that I thought were more important and important enough to talk about. Hence why there is so much around the 1000 Year Blood War. It was more recent and I remembered more of it. I would give Bleach overall a 7.5 out of 10, and my favourite openings were Veronica and Harukaze. And my favourite ending theme was End Roll. Give them a listen sometime. That's all for my Bleach video. Expect some more anime related content soon. I only plan to do videos like this twice, the others being done on Quikwa, or Queen's Quality as the full name, and Umisho, both of which won't be nearly as long as this video. Also, this video did take quite a while to put together and make, so please, I would really appreciate it if you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And please leave a comment as well. There are bound to be a few pieces that I've missed, like Ichigo's first fight with Renji, but I just touched upon the more important parts that I thought were important in the story. So, I'll see you in the next video. Bye 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 bye.